The Model S, it's in kind of a weird situation. It is now the only Tesla that does not qualify for the federal tax credit. They decided they couldn't build enough of them to justify building the right-hand drive model, so it's not available in a ton of countries. And the hardest part about justifying the Model S's existence is, for one, of course, the demand was not that high anyway. Higher interest rates, the economic climate we're in. That's why they had to cut the prices so drastically on the Model S. And then you bring in Highland Model 3, which takes away a ton of advantages in going with the Model S. The Model 3 is very likely to qualify for the federal tax credit when it gets refreshed. It takes the rear display, it's got the updated tail lights, it's got ventilated seats now. In fact, a lot of people are probably going to choose the Model 3 over the S, even regardless of price. So the debate probably Tesla's even having right now, that a lot of people are having online, is what do you do with the Model S? Do you scrap it? Do you discontinue it if there's just not enough people buying it? I'm not saying zero people will buy it, but if the demand is lower than what Tesla's production capacity can handle, and at a certain point you can't just keep cutting prices. Like, the vehicle is inherently more complicated, more premium, and more high-end than the Model 3, so there's not infinite margin to wiggle with. You know, they could probably get it a little bit under $70K, but all of the people saying, well, just lower the price so it qualifies for the federal tax credit, that would basically put it on par with the Model 3 pricing, and I don't think the margins are there for it. It would just be a burning hole for Tesla. So the debate is, do you scrap it or do you refresh it? Do you update it again? You know, it's been over 2 years since the big yoke plaid refresh that we got back in 2021. And of course, Project Highland is around the corner, and that's probably going to eat into Model S sales more and more. So in today's video, I thought I would try to help Tesla. You know, in the past, I thought I was crazy for suggesting all kinds of nitpicky things about Teslas, and then they would turn around and add or implement a lot of those requests I had. So I think it's a good thing for the community to speak out and be open and upfront to Tesla about, here's some things I think you could do. So for the sake of the argument, in today's video, I'm willing to advocate that Tesla should keep the Model S as their higher end, more luxury focused sedan, and talk about my top 11 or 12 wishes that I would hope Tesla could include on a potential refresh that we could see next year or the year after. There's no rumors or leaks of a big refresh coming. This is purely just speculation and trying to get the word out on some things Tesla could do to separate the Model S from the Model 3. And keep in mind, guys, we're talking about a higher end vehicle here. This is not a vehicle intended for higher production capacity. I think they're kind of comfortable with the amount they're building right now. This is not about what's good enough. We should not settle for the bare minimum with the Model S anymore. I think the job of this vehicle is to be the cream of the crop, the flagship vehicle, something to be in people's dream car territory. You know, it's not meant to be, good enough, you don't need all of those extra bells and whistles. No. The Model 3, that can be the high volume vehicle. The Model S, this is all about bells and whistles, okay? So the top request that I think Tesla is already working on when it comes to the Cybertruck that I think could bring some amazing advantages to the Model S is their higher voltage architecture. Some of the reasons the Lucid Air, despite being a heavier vehicle than the Model S, is able to achieve way better efficiency and way better range than what Tesla can is primarily because of their higher voltage architecture that they've got on the Lucid Air, and that enables them to use thinner wiring and also have a more compact powertrain that is able to just sip juice at highway speed. And Tesla's already told us that their 1000 volt architecture is already in use on the Tesla Semi and the Cybertruck, which makes sense for those higher mass-sized vehicles. But if the Model S got that higher voltage architecture, you would get a bigger boost in efficiency, and also you wouldn't have to push so many amps into the car to achieve higher peak charging speeds. Yeah, this is coming from a guy with an LFP Model 3, and my car peaks out at 170 kilowatts, and personally, I think that's fine. Like, I don't think the everyday person needs much more than 200 or 250 kilowatts, but the Model S is not intended for the everyday person. This is supposed to be no budget to think about, just the best possible EV Tesla can make, and in my opinion, optimizing it for extremely fast charging would be incredible. This could involve a beefed up battery management system to make the pack have a charging curve closer to that of the Porsche Taycan, where it can maintain those higher peak speeds, and with that higher voltage architecture, you could perhaps beat Lucid with their peak speeds and maybe getting over 350 kilowatts worth of charging. Thanks to this higher efficiency, and also another request I have, using some of that space savings on an updated powertrain and thinner wiring, you could also beef up the size of the battery pack. Keep in mind, the Model S is still technically a larger vehicle than a Lucid Air, and yet the Lucid is able to pack a 118 kilowatt hour pack. And I think Tesla, not like Lucid really needs this would kind of slaughter them, but Tesla probably has the engineering resources to make a Model S, even using 1865 cells, that could probably surpass a 500-mile range. Totally overkill. Personally, I think range is overrated, and not that many people actually need 500-mile range in their EV, but again, this is a premium segment. This is supposed to be Tesla's higher-end vehicle, so I would say a 500-plus mile range, basically fulfilling that promise of the Plaid Plus Model S, would be a great start. And while we're borrowing things from the Cybertruck, I would also bring over that 48-volt low-voltage battery pack so that all of the internal wiring and electronics can be powered with thinner cabling, helps with the better efficiency of the vehicle, and can make it possible to achieve that amazing range without too much larger of a battery pack. The other change that Elon actually mentioned in the past, but he probably doesn't even remember tweeting this, was that steer-by-wire was up for debate. He said maybe in a future model they would implement that, and personally, because it would probably take a bit of a rework on the engineering side, and that might cost a little bit more, it's going to be harder to implement that in a Model 3 and Y because those assembly lines are running so fast and they can't be shut down for too long. But I think it would be perfect to start out with the Model S because it's a lower volume vehicle, and it's a vehicle that Tesla seems at least a little bit more interested in offering a yoke option. And in my experience, a lot of people are okay with the yoke, but their criticisms come in when there's roundabouts or where you're doing 3-point turns and you have to spin that yoke around several times. And with a steer-by-wire system, you could make the turning radius of the wheels adjustable and dynamic based on the vehicle's speed. So of course, when you're driving at highway speed, you can just tilt the yoke a little bit left to right to change lanes and it would all feel normal. But then when you're in a parking lot or going through a roundabout in lower speed situations, you could make the wheels turn at a faster rate without too much tilting of the yoke so that you never have to do hand over hand motions anymore. Would make it a lot easier to access those blinker buttons if Tesla insists on not bringing back gear stocks, but also could reduce some of the complexity in manufacturing by going all in with a steer-by-wire system. Also, if the Model S and X are going to continue being the gaming-focused devices, you know, they have the PlayStation 5 GPUs on the inside that you can connect controllers with. One advantage of a steer-by-wire system is that if you're in park and you're just playing some cool racing game on your Tesla, with steer-by-wire you can disconnect the wheels from the actual steering wheel or yoke and move it around as much as you want while you're playing the game, and you don't have to be turning the tires on the outside of the car, kind of rubbing them unnecessarily. So for gaming advantages, there would be some steer-by-wire perks, as well as making the yoke a little bit more digestible and dynamic. And another feature that I know the Cybertruck is rocking that might be kind of cool for the Model S, which I already know has a pretty decent turning radius, but we've seen this on other Mercedes and higher-end luxury vehicles in the past. Bringing rear-wheel steering to the Model S, I think, could help it separate itself a bit more from the Model 3. It doesn't have to be by a lot. I'm not saying they have to turn as much as the front wheels, of course, but giving a insanely good turning radius on the Model S and having the rear wheels steer themselves a little bit more could help with navigating in tight spaces, despite the fact that the Model S, of course, is a pretty large vehicle. It's larger than the Lucid Air and the Model 3, so having a little bit of extra turn radius to work with, I think, could help differentiate itself a bit more from the Model 3. And of course, some obvious ones that people have been asking for a long time, a heads-up display. It's fairly futuristic, and I know with Tesla software and Tesla's state-of-the-art visualizations that they have with FSD, they could probably make one of the coolest heads-up displays ever in a car. And now that I've seen Tesla add a lot of features that we thought they would never add, like the blind spot indicators in the Highland Model 3, it's made me think, okay, maybe we shouldn't rule out as many things as we originally thought. If Tesla runs into situations where demand is weakening for a product, maybe they should try to implement their competitors' features, but make them in a more unique Tesla way. Maybe overlaying some of the full self-driving visualizations on top of your actual field of view when you're looking at the road. That might be kind of cool, giving you a distance between the cars in front of you, or just putting arrows on the exits you're supposed to take and that kind of thing. I think there's some creative things they could do with it that would also help the interior feel a lot more clean and minimal. I've seen a lot of people disagree with me on this one, but if the rumors are true about Project Juniper, which they likely are because all the rumors were true about Project Highland, then it means that the Model 3 and Y are going to be at rockin' ventilated seats probably within the next year or two. And I still think that the Model S and X should probably be rocking some interior advantages as well, especially when it comes to the seats. Personally, I think they could get some better headrest designs. I'm not really a fan of the current Model 3 and Y headrest. It just makes your head want to roll off it so much. Maybe that's to prevent prevent you from falling asleep, I don't know. But if they could redesign the headrest to be a bit more of a cradle format, I think that might be a tad more comfortable, a little bit more Mercedes S-Class inspired, but I'd also be in favor of them adding massaging seats to the Model S and X, which may sound gimmicky to some of you, but it is a luxury feature that is pretty common among a lot of Tesla's competitors, and if they want to give everybody no reason to consider buying any high-end vehicle that is not a Model S, then rocking some massaging seats, which is definitely bougie and a little bit overkill. I don't know, it's something that the Model 3 and Y could be missing out on, that the Model S and X could still keep around. Another top requested feature that I think they could probably give with the Model S and X, because these are higher priced vehicles and they don't have to worry too much about volume production like they do with the 3 and Y, is the bird's eye view. It's been heavily requested for a very long time that you'd be able to just look down at the car as you're pulling in or out of a parking space, and there are these blind spots with the current layout of cameras on Tesla's vehicles, which is why I thought maybe with the Model S and X being higher end vehicles, they can throw in a few extra cameras just to fill in those blind spots. Maybe they don't even need to be active when you're using full self-driving or anything, they're just there purely to fill in those gaps when you're doing the bird's eye view monitoring. But I could see Tesla saying, you don't need it, the park assist lines are good enough on the 3 and Y, but if you pay a little bit extra for an S and X, yeah, you can access those extra cameras, and that gives you a better field of view when you're pulling in and out of parking spaces. The other thing that I definitely think makes newer, more expensive vehicles stand out are good lighting systems, and Tesla has, you know, pretty decent brake lights and taillight designs on the Highland Model 3, but for the most part, they're fairly standard looking, they're kind of basic, and I think what kind of catches people's eyes and wows people is when you have really high refresh rate and smooth blinkers and brake lights that can kind of dynamically change depending on what you're doing. And I've seen it on other non-Teslas out there when you have certain lights that when you indicate them, they're just very smooth and gradual and they kind of catch your eye. I think Tesla could do some more updates with the exterior lighting, maybe even go as far as to installing some wheel well lights or some underfloor lights just to really stand out in the night, so that when a Model S refresh is driving by, you're like, holy crap, what is that car? It like just stands out, which if they're going for increased desirability and trying to make the vehicle catch more eyes and get more people talking about the brand and not so much high volume production, then maybe more exterior lighting that can really flash and put on a good show during that light show presentation. That might be a good idea. And also just make the interior like up to date with the Highland Model 3, of course, which has that cool ambient lighting, and we're pretty sure the Cybertruck's gonna have that interior ambient lighting as well. So of course, bring that to the Model S and X. Absolutely, I feel like that's a given. And other more highly requested additions could be things like a powered frunk, which the Lucid Air is rocking and the Model S still isn't. It's definitely weird with the Model X as well, that like everything with that car has self-presenting doors and of course the powered lift gate, but then the frunk is still something you have to manually open and close. It just feels like a weird thing to leave out on such an expensive vehicle. So I say Model S and X should both get powered frunks, and also while we're at it, auto-presenting doors. I think it's a really cool feature on the Model X, but I also think it would be great on the Model S, even if it's just on the driver's side door or something. If it's meant to be a higher price, more luxurious Tesla experience, then all those doors should open and close, and of course have the soft closing tech. If you just gently close it, it can bring itself all the way inward. And if all of these features put together still don't turn around demand, I'm sure this would be a pretty big refresh for 2024, 2025, but if they refresh them and they raise the price and everything, and there's a big wave of demand and then they start dying off, a couple more things that they could always try to increase Model S and X demand. For one, more free supercharging options. I don't think they'll ever do free supercharging for life ever again, but maybe if they get desperate, they'll just start saying, you know what, this car gets free supercharging forever. That's how you know they'll be truly desperate. But something that might not be as hard to commit to long term is just giving away full self-driving with the price of the car. I know that sounds a little crazy, but we're already seeing Tesla give away FSD for free for 90 days if you use anybody's referral code, and we've now seen the price of full self-driving drop for the first time recently, going from $15,000 to $12,000. So if the Model S and X are higher end vehicles and you're trying to sweeten the deal and make it feel like they're worth considering when the Model 3 and Y are getting so good and so affordable, then maybe just including full self-driving for free for the life of the car wouldn't really cost that much on Tesla's end. All of the hardware is already there anyway, and because Tesla doesn't have to continuously pay for you to access that feature like they would if they had free supercharging, that might be something that we see Tesla experiment with future models. Like, hey, if you buy this Model S and X before the end of the year, you get free FSD be with the car for maybe just 2 years or 3 years, or if they get really desperate, permanently. And if all of these features don't sound convincing enough, I would love to hear your guys' ideas down in the comments below. And thank you once again to everybody supporting this channel directly. It seriously helps us out a ton, as does just watching these videos. So thanks again. Have an excellent rest of your day.